This is the Tire Kickers. Classic car chat with Max and Matt.
Buy your beds, it's 2026 and we are back to inspect the world of classic cars and give it a full dressing down where needed. My name is Matt.
And I am Max. Yes, the holidays are over and it's back to the serious business of talking nonsense about old cars. Did you miss us?
The Tire Kickers.
Coming up in this episode is happy 50th birthday to the Berlin taxi, the Mercedes W123. Some say it's boring, but we're going to argue that it's brilliant and maybe the best car ever made.
Also on the show, from poverty to posh. We look at the 70s trend of offering luxury versions of bland household cars. But were models like the Van Pla all fur coat and no knickers?
So buckle up and get ready for some more strong opinions as we bump start Season 3 and get arguing for a brand new year. Welcome to the podcast we call The Tire Kickers.
The Mercedes-Benz 240D. Surgically precise steering, tenacious road holding, powerful fade-resistant disc brakes, aiming to be as road efficient as it is fuel efficient. The Mercedes-Benz 240D, aiming for efficiency in all its forms.
That video sounded like the man who did the voiceover for the A-Team credits. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So, in January 1976, 50 years ago, Mercedes launched perhaps the greatest car of all time. Now, that is a bit of an essay question, but I'd argue the Mercedes W123 Saloon, Coupe, and Estate rate as one of the most influential model lines of the 20th century because, unlike lots of built-in obsolescence, these were designed to last.
The ultimate Berlin taxi, the cheesy hen night stretch limo, or the African rally car, the W123 Mercedes is a bit of an odd one. In truth, it's a bit boring to drive, but I reckon every car nut secretly loves a 123.
If you don't like a Mercedes W123, you don't really have petrol in your veins because you're right, they are a bit boring, but I think it's that dullness and that solidity which is so attractive because every time you and I see one, when we go to auctions and stuff, we're all over it like a rash. And we walk past some far more interesting machinery just to get into this car and hear the doors click and hear the buttons switch and get in the seats and open the bonnet and have a good poke around. It really is a very tactile car. And I think that's probably the more interesting thing about it is you just want to get your hands on it.
Now, talking of dullness and solidity, by the way, welcome back.
Thanks.
We should, before we
Ditto.
go on, I feel like a wave of New Year facts are about to hit me about Mercedes 123s. We should, for the benefit of the listener, explain what we're talking about. If you're not up to speed with model codes, I said to Max, perhaps we should explain because not everybody knows what a W123 is, and you were like, "What?"
Everybody does. Surely everybody's talking about them at this time of year.
For the benefit of people who aren't Uber nerds, we're talking about that 80s Berlin taxi, that slabby 80s saloon Mercedes with the front, rectangular headlights. It had the big grille. It had the old the Mercedes TriStar on the front there, and you saw them everywhere. You mainly saw them when you were abroad. Actually, if you ever flew to like Germany in the 80s, you would get in Mercedes taxi. Even in the 90s and in the 2000s, they're still running, and they're still running all over the world. And it's always just been a bit of a meh car. And I think in Britain, it's always been a bit of a meh car. But we'll get into that and discuss that.
Because I think actually they were, if you bought a W123 in period, I think you'd arrived.
Oh, yeah. No, in period, if you had that on the drive in the 80s, you were kind of, hello, he's doing well. But I think as classic cars, we're very, very spoiled in Britain. We've got access to so many classic cars that they're not like silly money. Austin Healey, for example. You put an Austin Healey and a W123 together, a car meet. Which one are you going to look at first?
Yeah, I'd go to the W123 because I think they're so interesting.
Yeah, you would. But being honest about it, I've sort of always thought, nah, unless I was abroad. Now, I remember going on a summer holiday in 1997 to Malta, and flying into Gozo and getting picked up in a 123 as a taxi. And I just remember sitting in the front seat and thinking, this is cool. Because it obviously been on the road since about the 1800s. But, it was still going. And it just had that cachet and that coolness. And I think, in Britain, we are exposed to so many cars. We are a massive, massive car market. And I think we get a bit blasé about cars. And as classic cars, I think, the 123's never sort of had that, maybe that appeal in Britain. But go abroad and they do.
I can see that because it doesn't have that sports car appeal that we like at the meets.
No,
and it doesn't have that kind of like fast, flash kind of look about it and people cooing over the lines. But if you look at the design of a W123, it's every bit as advanced as the kind of sports cars of the 60s. So I think that's, to me, where it appeals, is it's got that authenticity. You just know that that car will keep running, and that's what it was built for. And you don't get those kind of built-to-last cars anymore.
No, but I think it was functionally, the reason it's done so well as a taxi, it's functionally, it does the job. It's solid. It's not necessarily sexy, is it? Until you start, as I say, you see loads of them in like the Canary Islands in Spain. And whenever I see them there and, in the sunshine against palm trees and stuff, I remember last year I saw one in Lanzarote and got talking to the driver. And it'd been on the roads, and they seem to get passed down, especially in those countries that people buy cars and they keep them and they pass them down through the family because they don't rust over there. They tend to just keep them until they keep going. And they do keep going, those 123s, but they just look so much more cool. And I'd love to have one of those. If I lived somewhere hot, in southern Europe, I'd love to have a 123.
I don't think you need to live somewhere hot. Just have one here. I mean, I think they've still got that cool in this country because you're right. They're a kind of hand-me-down almost in that people who were running taxi firms and driving taxis would pass it on down the family because they were so well built and they last. And that's why I think they are so cool. Whereas your Austin Healey you mentioned, might have fallen apart 3 times by now and been restored 4 times. I don't think a W123 would have been.
No, that's very true. I mean, I think they're aging gracefully, a bit like ourselves, not so much you, but
speak for yourself.
Or are they aging gracefully, or are we getting older?
It's a timeless design. I don't think it's even aging. I think that's one of the great things about this design is it's just a fantastic piece of car architecture. And it stands today as well as it stood 50 years ago when it came out as a saloon that really delivered on everything you wanted from a saloon car.
I think it's time to give them another look. And I just think if only we had someone who was really like an uber classic car nerd who knew lots about car. Do you know anything about W123s?
What, you mean somebody who's been sitting in a room all Christmas waiting for something to research?
Yes, pretty much. You've had a few weeks basically to nerd up on this, haven't you, basically? So what have you got?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, it's been a dream Christmas looking at facts about the W123.
Do I have to get involved in this, or are you just going to do a monologue on it?
I mean, you don't have to, but you will do because you won't be able to keep quiet for long enough. So pay attention. You might actually learn something.
Okay,
for example, the first fact is, and I didn't know this, 50% of all W123s ever made were diesels.
Hold on a minute. Pull the handbrake on this because you hate diesels. You've always slagged off diesel. Dirty diesels, you call them. So why would you get excited about a 123 diesel?
Anyway, moving on, let's have some more facts. Do you know how many they made?
Well, so they were in production for like how long? Like
10 years.
10 years, okay. So Mercedes, I mean, they weren't cheap, were they? I mean, they've got to be like a couple of million, I would. Well, so let's go a couple of million.
2.7 million until January 1986. The most popular models were the 240 diesel, that was 455,000 built, the 230E, the petrol injection, 442,000, and the 200D, that's taxi spec, 378,000 built.
This is why, when you get to the model numbers, because they're all 230s and 280s and 240s and everything, but the diesel obviously was the big seller because you could just run on them. But break down the model codes because Mercedes has got this sort of specific way of explaining what car was what, hasn't it?
Yeah, love to. Here are some model code nerdy facts. W was for the wagon, which was the saloon. C was for the coupe, and T was for the estate, while D in the badge obviously meant diesel, and E stood for injection, the petrol injection. While the chassis codes for the estates were actually S, and V for the long wheelbase limo, while F123, was reserved for long wheelbase conversions like ambulances or hearses.
Oh, I've missed you.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, who needs an ITOL when you've got you? You're starting to lose me a bit here, I'll be honest. Can we talk about the actual kind of tangible stuff? Because the one thing this car is famous for is a tank-like build quality. That was the thing with this, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the early 123 dashboards are actually hand-assembled because the tolerances by hand were much better and tighter than the factory robots could manage in 1976. Also, the T123 estate was the first factory-built estate car Mercedes ever made, which is odd because Mercedes actually never wanted to build an estate. They were forced into it by the European distributors demanding a bigger family-friendly car.
That was the thing about it. It was, people talk about Mercedes, before the accountants got involved, they were built to a standard rather than a price. But, they couldn't have done that with everything. What about the outside of it, for example?
Yeah, the car's paint thickness is twice as thick as most modern cars, and it was one of the first Mercs to use galvanized panels. Although sadly, they didn't galvanize the whole shell, which is a bit of a mistake because they always rust from the inside.
Well, it's always the Achilles heels with Mercedes. No matter how tank-like they were, that tin worm in Northern Europe is the thing. I mean, in Southern Europe, it wasn't always so bad. But, my thing's the interiors. I have actually got a fact about the interior.
Okay.
If you've ever sat in one of these, that massive indicator stalk. It's kind of a Mercedes thing, isn't it? It's the all-in-one indicator stalk. Have you ever noticed how heavy that is? That you kind of clunk it up and clunk it down. Well, that was sort of engineered into it. It didn't need to be that heavy, but they wanted it to feel expensive to give a quality feel because you'd have paid a lot of dosh for this car. It was not necessarily to do with it needing to be strong. It was just having to feel that quality. And I think that's something tangible that you touch. So I think that reinforces that every time you get into the car.
And also they just thought about other stuff. So for example, the steel wheels were designed so you can straighten them with a hammer at the roadside should you hit a pothole or a curb.
Yeah, would you actually do that? If you paid so much money for this car, are you the sort of person who's going to get out with a hammer and start bashing the wheels?
No, but I think if you're a taxi driver, you might do because it would save you money because you'd be hitting potholes all the time.
They did last, didn't they? I mean, Mercedes estimated a product life of 15 years on these cars, and they over-specified things like rubber suspension bushings because they just thought owners would never replace them before the car was scrapped. But we've gone on to see that a lot of these cars didn't get scrapped; they just kept going.
And there's things like during the kind of like testing stage, the rear floor suspension on the estate was tested by dropping an engine block on it to see if it would cope with the load. I mean, that's quite extreme, but they're very thoughtful about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, the heater motor was tested for 5,000 continuous hours or 208 days, to make sure it would last. I can't see that happening on BL stuff. Oh, God, no, I've started saying bad things about BL. Or British cars, for example, yeah.
But listen to this. The bonnet release cable had a special route around the engine to make sure in cold climates you could still open the bonnet without the cable freezing. I mean, the thinking about that is tremendous because you're thinking of the markets you're going to sell it to. And also, everybody is going to be able to keep opening the bonnet, whatever the weather.
Well, look, I think you factored me out here. So before I tell you to fact off, let's look at some 123s in the classifieds. This is what we enjoy doing. Well, let's start with these estates because we've got to talk about these because although you can pick up a 123 for like peanuts, these estates are still asking for silly money. Why is that?
Do you know, I've got no idea. Are they made out of gold? It's ridiculous. The kind of second-hand estate prices on the classic car market are crazy. I mean, the estates are a bit difficult because they've got different rear suspension, so they are more expensive to fix. And I think the petrol tank's unique, so you can only get them repaired. You can't get them made off Mercedes now. But this is a 1983 230 TE estate manual, 32,000 miles, and some dealer is asking £42,000 for it, for a Mercedes 123. I mean, these were about $3,000, 2-3 years ago, weren't they?
So what colour is this? It's sort of silver, like a dark silver. It's an A-range.
It's a nice one. It's a silver. It's the 230, so it's the 4-cylinder, so not the greatest engine, but it's a really nice one. But £40,000 for that?
I know.
You must be joking.
It's a lot, especially when you consider the saloons. You could pick up like 5.
Yeah, so you still can, can't you?
To describe this, if you want to picture this is what I'd call the Gymkhana Mercedes of the 80s. It's sort of, it'd be going off to Pony Club or something. It was middle class, sort of upper middle class, posh people had these, didn't they? In London,
it was the kind
and in the home counties.
Last generation Range Rover of its time, wasn't it? The posh people with posh estates had this as they kind of adopted it as their posh car.
Yeah, I wouldn't want a manual though. I don't think these cars suit manual. You're going to argue that yes, they do, but I don't think they do. I think
I think you're right on this. I don't think they suit manuals either because the manual gear change isn't that great on these, and you want a kind of wafty auto box. It's not a sports car, is it? Although actually, I had a 280 TE for a while until it rusted away, and it did handle quite nicely. It's a relatively, it wasn't quick, but it was quite swift. That was a good thing you could say about that car. And it kind of handled in its own way. So I do like these W123s because they do drive really nicely.
Yeah, and I think on this one, for $42,000, look at the engine bay. I mean, the manifolds and stuff are all quite rusty. It's all quite grubby in there. I'd want that to be looking showroom perfect. I don't think it's going to be a particularly exciting car to take to a car meet, but, that's not what we're talking about here. It's smart enough. If this was like $10,000 or $15,000, I'd probably
I'd love it. If you look at the next one on your screen, this is a 1985 Mercedes 230 CE. So this is the coupe. Now, you and I saw one of these at auction last year, absolutely wet ourselves about it. That's what this car has got, I think. It's got star appeal when you actually see them in the flesh. Because if you look at the photographs, you just think, yeah, it's another Merc. But actually, when you see them and you feel them and you touch them, this is where the kind of quality shines through. And this is a 1985 W123 230e coupe. Again, the 4-cylinder, okay, not so good. But in red, I think the coupe looks really good. Just going through these pictures, I mean, it's It's got the signal red that's the same color as mine, actually, with the color-coded hubcaps, lovely, and with the kind of cream interior. Now that is, and it's an auto, which is good, cloth interior, that is peak W123 for me because it's just so nicely designed and you get to appreciate all the design elements and the care that was taken in the design process.
Yeah, these coupes, I think, are the gateway drug into this car because the coupe is always the one that people go for first because it's just a little bit sexier. It's not as dowdy as the saloon. They kind of bounce up and down these because I've been watching the values of these for the last couple of years because I nearly kind of went and looked at one. And they sort of bump up, but they kind of hang around 13 grand, 12, 13 grand for a good one. And I think that is a cool car to have. I've always sort of like thought, like we've talked about, are they a bit frumpy compared to other stuff? Again, for the reasons we talked about earlier, I think in the context of British classic cars, you imagine a big classic car meet and you pulled this up. It's not as sexy as all the other cars. However, I think this is your gateway drug into the saloon. I think the saloon is good. I'd happily have a saloon, but if I lived abroad. Whereas if I lived here, I'd want the coupe just because it's a bit cooler.
It is very different. It's very different, isn't it? And it's got
Yeah,
that
it
look
feels
that makes you
different.
look twice because you're used to the silhouette of the W123, but you look at the coupe and think, oh, that's nice, isn't it? And also, like you said, windows down, Lighthouse Family blaring from the stereo. It's a really cool car.
Oh, it's 80s. Well, 80s, you'd have to have something cheesier. You'd have to have like a bit of Hall & Oates blaring out or something. But as you rightly pointed out, looking through the pictures, yes, it looks good, but in the flesh, these things have a little bit more presence,
They've
don't
got
they?
presence, you're right. That's exactly right. They've got a kind of character. Now, if you look at the next one on your screen, I've been watching this for a while because I think this is quite a good buy. This is a saloon, so it's a 230e 4-cylinder fuel injection, and it's in a gorgeous blue with a factory sunroof. So it's the 4-door, and this one is, I'm just scrolling to the price here, this is 10,995. Now, I don't think that's that bad for a well-kept, non-rust blue saloon with a tan interior.
I think you can get them cheaper.
You can, but this is from a specialist, so I'm pretty sure that this won't have rust.
Yeah, it's a bit like that expression, the most expensive car you can buy is a cheap Bentley, and I think you don't want to even say he's too cheap because it, as you say, the tin worm and stuff is the worst thing on these. This is really nice. Scrolling through, it's got the sunroof. It's in that blue. I don't know what they call that.
Royal blue, this is.
A royal blue, is it? It's got all the original books. It's got a black dashboard, so you're more likely to get bits of trim if you need them. It's a smart car, but it's not as cool as the coupe, is it?
No, it isn't.
In this context,
No, I
side
do
by
think the
side.
coupe is nicer, but I think the Estate's probably the best. But if they're going to ask silly money, you don't want to go down that end. But I think this is actually, as a value classic, 10 grand for one of these is not that expensive. It's done 150,000 miles, and actually that's not bad. And if you can get it from a specialist and it's serviced and it hasn't got any rust, it's pretty much going to go on forever, isn't it? So I think this is where you get value in the W123s.
This is the same sort of era as your car, and if this was an SL, it would be double the price, wouldn't it?
Almost, well, probably 3 times, maybe not with that mileage. Probably, you're right, double the price. But actually, you're right. You can get into your kind of SL, your R107 SL, but for a lot cheaper and with extra doors and seats in the back.
I still think a coupe feels cooler in the UK.
I think the key to one of these is if you and I weren't so soft and wedded to our heated seats and heated steering wheels, you could run this all year round. This could be your genuine daily classic car, couldn't it? I reckon a W123 is probably the peak car you could choose to run a classic car all year round, all through the winter and through the hot weather. And I think this will keep going. I think you could genuinely do it. But in so many other cars, British cars, for example, they would just crumble and collapse in front of your eyes. I would have faith in this starting every morning.
Well, it's episode 47, season 3 for 2026 of the Tyre Kickers, and it's we took a few weeks off, Max, didn't we? It's been a while since we were last forced to talk to each other. So,
It's
what have you?
absolute bliss. The silence has been gorgeous.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, Max, whether anybody had actually missed us, but there was a comment on our Facebook page, which is the Tyre Kickers, 3 separate words if you want to go and find that. David Smith, I don't know if you saw this, he said, where are you guys? Are you lost on the M25? I've had to listen to some pretty rubbish car podcasts while you've been enjoying your Christmas break.
What as well as this one?
Hope you're back soon. Oh, thank you, David. That was really nice. Actually,
That's very kind. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't understand the sacrifice that I have to do in order to work with Matt, but I am back. I'm doing my best. I'm actually just pushing through. And yes, we are delivering another Tyre Kickers.
Complains too much. Actually, talking of that Facebook, go to our Facebook page, The Tyre Kickers, because I put a post up there of the gorgeous MGB resto that someone's done in Australia. Oh my God, go and have a look at that. It's been trimmed in green leather inside, and it made me cross my legs as I looked at it. It is my ideal classic car, this. I need you to look at it, Max. to tell me what you think. This has got to be my ideal, my sort of ideal classic car that somebody's gone in and done it and made it better. Look, it's got green leather inside. It's been trimmed out. All the dashboard's been done. It's been beautifully resprayed. I want this car.
It's not kind of factory spec, is it?
It's not what? Factory spec?
It's not factory spec.
That's why I like it. Because it's better than factory spec. I mean, look how, oh my God, I have to cross my legs looking at this. It's all got stitched leather in it and stuff. Oh, that's great. That's much better.
If you want to do a resto mod, an MGB is a good place to start, but it's still an MGB interior, isn't it? It's not that special.
Oh, no. This makes me want to do this. I mean, it's be beautiful. If you click through the pictures, so you go and have a look on our Facebook page, The Tyre Kickers. It's got, even in the boot, it's all been trimmed out, and there's been like a toolkit made from the same leather that it's trimmed in inside. And then even like the littlest detail, there's a key fob made out of the same leather that all the seats are trimmed in. It's fantastic. It's been done by Modern Classic Cars Foundation in Australia. It's on our Facebook page. Go and have a look. While you're there, give it a like and a subscribe and all that sort of stuff. But getting back to Christmas, I did get a few Christmas presents. I've got stag window switches, which I've put in already.
Oh, right. Okay.
I've got this dashboard veneer kit. Do I do it? I'm sort of two minds about it. Do I pull the dashboard out and start re-veneering it? It would look good.
Pulling dashboards out. I mean, we've talked about this before, but I'm not sure it's going to go back completely as it came out.
Okay, I'll have a think about that. I'll update you about that one. I got this great book in the Secret Santa at work about Bond cars. You'll love that. I need to show that.
I saw that.
You.
Yeah, I saw you post a picture about that. That was really good.
It's a coffee table book, and it's like each car has got details on and behind the scenes shots and stuff. It's really, really nice. So I'm sort of working my way through that. I've also got your badges for the BL badges for the Stag, which we unveiled on the last show.
Which we've had a discussion about whether, because I thought they were from the factory and you think they were dealer options.
Well, I've been told by more than one person, Stag owner, that they weren't. They were dealer bling. Which is why you probably remember them, because your dad was a dealer, and I think it got blinged up. I think they sort of put these things on or sold them as extras or whatever. And I initially, when you presented them to me and said you've got to put them on your car because it's not right, I kind of went, I'm not sure. But actually, I've given it some thought. I've mellowed over Christmas, and I've decided I will be putting them on the car.
I really think they add something to the look of the Stag, because I think it was more of a Mark II thing, and they do have that good BL badge, and it's very period. It's about the story of the car, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a nice badge, even though it's BL. It's a nice badge. It's a nice metallic metal enamel badge kind of thing. A bit of admin, actually, I've got to say, that's crept up because of Christmas. Let me explain, because one of the Christmas presents I got over Christmas from my daughter and a boyfriend was a title. I am now a lord. I own a little.
I can give you plenty of titles.
So look, it's Lord Matthew from now on, and I want you to start showing me a bit more respect and addressing me as such. I actually own a postage stamp of land in Scotland. You could swing a kind of cat or a seatbelt around in it. You can actually see it. It's one of these novelty title things that you can get, but you can actually go on the app and you can see the bit of Scotland. But I'm Lord of the Glen, and I can use the title.
I think it's more important than now you were Lord Smith of British Leyland.
The Tyre Kickers, classic car chat with Max and Matt.
And in between Christmas, have you run the car out?
I have, deliberately. I've taken it out a few times because I knew the salt and the snow was coming. So I've taken it up and down the dual carriageway just to keep it going, to be honest, because I think instead of all this kind of like preparation stuff, I'm just going to try and use it as much as possible. What I did see in one of the garages next to me is somebody's got an old 60s Ford Mustang. And not only did they blow the tyres up to stop flat spotting, they put some carpet underneath the tyres as well, which I've never seen before, to try and protect the tyres. But I think it's better just to keep using the car, to be honest. So every time I can squeeze, a half hour, an hour journey out, I'm just going to try and take it out.
Blimey, yeah, blowing your tyres out. I didn't do that because I have been using the car quite a lot, and I've been using it right up until Christmas, like yourself. Been running errands in it. It's really, really usable, the Stag, actually, because of the automatic, because the heater works. You can run it about, no problem. I mean, so I have been seeing a few petrol stations. I was going to run it out just before the new year, and I went to sort of, move the car, and I've got my daily car blocks the garage that it's in. So I went to move the daily car, and I saw the salt on the road right outside my house, and I thought, oh, for God's sake.
Close the garage door. That ain't coming out. A British car ain't coming out in the salt.
I did, but am I too wet about it? I mean, we put it on Instagram, and I showed a picture of some of the grit and asked people if they'd do it. And I just think, with the Stag, it's a no-no. What's your take on it? Would you have taken the Merc out in that?
No, definitely not. Absolutely not. Because it's funny, I was coming down the M1 last week and I saw somebody was driving their Aston Martin DB6 up the motorway while I was following a gritter. And I felt like waving out the window saying, put it away, because
Yeah.
it's car suicide. Unless you really have a comprehensive wash underneath, which is quite difficult, it is quite bad news for any kind of like car built in the 50s, 60s and 70s and 80s.
Well, yeah. One of our listeners has talked about using his Land Rover in the winter and just washing it off, with a hose when you get back. It's not something you do to a Stag or an SL.
Well, it's
because then
difficult to get underneath it, isn't it? Unless you've got a ramp.
Well, yeah, and then how do you dry it out? Blah, blah, blah. So this meant I chickened out of going to the New Year's Day Brooklyn Sing because of that, because this was the Gritters appeared like the day before New Year's Day. I was going to go to the Brooklands car meet, which is quite a famous car meet on New Year's Day, quite a big one. And I chickened out of taking the car there, and then I didn't go. And I kind of regret that because one, there was tons of cars there, absolutely loads of cars there. And I could have gone in, just gone in with Daly and had a look. And two, did I chicken out of that? But I don't know. I think putting salt anywhere near a stag is like putting salt on a slug, isn't it? It's not going to last very long, is it?
Yeah, but slightly more expensive.
Well, as I say, we posted a photo of some of the grit on the roads around the sort of over the new year, and sort of asked people. It was on Instagram at the Tyre Kickers UK, and asked you if you take your classic out in it. And OMG Motors said, I wouldn't go anywhere near that salt if I had a classic Italian number. It would be like watching an Alka-Seltzer in a glass of water dissolving before my eyes. You don't want to take an Alpha anywhere near the grit, do you?
The Alka-Seltzer is that over Christmas because you'd eaten and drunk too much. It just has a kind of feel to it, doesn't it? Britton Matt said he'd want a decent downpour to happen to wash it all away before he'd drive his classic out. That's exactly what I'm waiting for. And actually, as we record this, it is absolutely pouring with rain. So I reckon next week, in a dry afternoon, I think I might get mine out.
And Scott Heads 179 has the last word on this. He said, don't worry about it. He said, that's what welders were invented for.
Don't forget, you can find us at the Tyre Kickers UK on Instagram and the Tyre Kickers on Facebook.
So yeah, I've been doing that. And we've been watching loads of YouTube, I guess, and I have. Have you been watching YouTube over the Christmas period just to fill the gap?
I saw Paul Cowland had done a good video on a Super Beetle he'd found. And basically, it's a pretty original Super Beetle he'd pulled out of a garage. And that just looked fantastic. I remember those Super Beetles because they were, I think there was 1600s rather than the normal 1303s. This is a 1600 engine. I love those. It had all the kind of period 70s bits on it as well, which made it really cool.
Yeah, there's another car you wouldn't go anywhere near a gritter as a Beetle.
No, God,
that would
terrible.
Yeah, talking to Paul Cowland, he has his own channel on YouTube called Cowland on Cars, and I watched a video a couple of days ago that why he was making this point: why now is a great time to buy a 90s classic. Now he made a good case for this. He's got a few himself, and he sort of said they're cheap. They're manual. They haven't got loads of electronics. They're simple. You can run them as a daily. But you know what? I still have this thing that the 90s are ugly. He made a good case for it, but they're ugly to me, these cars. I can't get excited. I mean, a Z3 maybe, but that's about it. I think for me, it's a decade best forgotten and just skip over it. Go from the 80s to the 2000s.
I think you're missing quite a lot of good cars there. But anyway, we've had this discussion before.
There's some good stuff on YouTube. Is there room for any more good stuff on YouTube? I don't know.
Possibly. I mean, who could you be thinking about?
Maybe, potentially, we might be on YouTube this year. We've got, we've been talking about this for a while. We're planning to move this show onto there in a couple of months' time. If things line up, how are you feeling about that, Max?
I am a little bit nervous about it because if you are a nerd, it's quite good to hide in the darkness of your bedroom and just come up with facts about W123 wiring looms. But I think this possibly deserves a wider audience on YouTube. Or maybe it doesn't, but it's worth a try, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll give it a go. I mean, I watch a lot of podcasts on YouTube now, and I just think, classic car ones are a bit lacking. So, we've got a rhythm.
We certainly will be once we start.
Well, we've got a rhythm with this. So maybe, it's time to sort of reveal our faces and also get out and just film a bit more video content, that sort of stuff. What I will say, actually, if you're listening to this on audio, it will still stay on audio because we'll still put it in audio, but you'll have something to watch potentially on YouTube. So we're going to start working on that. I mean, it feels about the right time to do this, doesn't it? We'll give it a go and see how we're going to do. But we do need your help, actually. If you can do us a massive, massive favor, because you know how YouTube works, basically, that if we put something on YouTube, it's just going to sync, without any interaction. So we need you to go to our YouTube channel. It's up and running already. It's called Tyre Kickers Podcast. 3 words, Tyre Kickers Podcast. Please, can you go and just do one thing? Hit subscribe, because that'll just give us a bit of momentum before we start putting stuff out there. Tyre Kickers Podcast on YouTube. Please hit subscribe. It won't cost you a penny. It'll take seconds to do, and it will help us massively. So, yeah, please go and do that.
So, do you remember when manufacturers decided their cars were a bit too common and tried to make the same car go upmarket and hope that customers would pay extra for a vanilla model with some trinkets?
Trinkets. What are you talking about here? Spec changes like GL to a gear or L to HLS, a bit of bright work and a passenger door mirror, maybe? Is that what you mean?
No. I think a bit more than that. This is when base models were taken off of the production line and designed to look like upmarket cars, even when they weren't. It was a kind of Cinderella transformation from poverty to posh. For example, the Mini to Riley Elf Wolseley Hornet. Look at this on your screen. This is a Riley Elf. Now, you can see in the middle, it's a Mini, but it's got the great, fantastic kind of Riley features. So first of all, it's got a big grille on the front, so it's got a nose. And secondly, it's got a big boot on the back. So that's what they designed to try and make it look different. And these were quite successful. You know, as many kind of derivatives, the Riley Elf Wolseley Hornet was actually quite a successful car and quite popular. You know, a lot of people had this because they thought, the Mini's a bit kind of everyman. I'm going to go a bit upmarket. And you know how snobbish we are as Brits. These Rileys and Wolseley kind of retakes on the Mini were successful. Flick through the pictures, it's actually quite a balanced car, isn't it? It's got the kind of rear lights of an A40. And if you look at the kind of inside, it's got leather.
Ooh.
It's got a kind of fake wood dash across the dashboard where the Mini just had those three kind of instruments on one binnacle. And it's got, which for Minis are quite important, it's got a door handle. Now, on early Minis, you just had a bit of string that you pull down, a bit of plastic to open the door. This has got a door handle and door pockets.
So these cars, I'd forgotten about this particular one. I mean, as you say, it's like a Mini that's kind of been sort of Rolls-Royced up a bit. I suppose that's the way of putting it, isn't it? It's not kind of basic. It's got this sort of big grille on the front, and as you say, a sort of more leather interior. And I think we've got to put this into context. This is at a time in the sort of late 60s and 70s when class was really, really visible in Britain, wasn't it? You know, things are much more fluid now. You don't quite know who's from where and whatever. You know, people from the aristocracy, you know, wear grey joggers sometimes. You know, it's not necessarily as clear as it was. But back in those days, you could tell what someone, where they were from by the way they spoke, and there was that aspiration to move up classes, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely, because some people, you know, buy fake titles off the internet to become a lord still. So, you know, these things are important.
But I suppose the point of this car and the cars we're going to talk about was to show you were of a bit of better standing, wasn't it? You know, it's to make the neighbours jealous, to show that you just didn't have a Mini, you had a posh Mini. You know, I wonder who bought these things. Do you think it was suburbanites?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these were really popular in kind of posh suburban areas. I mean, this one is a 1963 Mini Riley Elf, and it's got so much chrome on it. It's just covered in little chrome bits. It's got a kind of duotone, different coloured roof, red leather interior. It's actually going for £28,000 at the moment, which is quite expensive. Yeah. But they're quite rare now. But you can just see that people just wanted to differentiate themselves from people just driving a standard 998cc Mini, and you could get your 1098cc Riley Elf or Wolseley Hornet. And it was just a way just to be a bit more special. And that's a very British thing, isn't it? Just to be slightly better than the next person.
Rolls-Royce was seen, you know, as the top of the tree in terms of cars. It always was, wasn't it? Especially in the 60s and 70s. You know, the Rolls of the Silver Cloud and then the Silver Shadow was seen as the thing. And these are trying to be mini versions of that, I think, aren't they? Well, pardon the pun. This one is a mini version of Rolls-Royce. But if you look at the dashboard, there's very kind of Silver Shadowy kind of undertones to that, aren't they? And I suppose this is, you know, when you picked your friend up for the lunch date and you drove them, oh, wow, this is posh, isn't it? And I think that was the whole point of it, wasn't it?
I think these were also very popular with retired people. You know, when you retired from your job as a bank manager and you didn't want to be seen driving a Mini, you'd want to be seen driving something a little bit special. And particularly if you'd come from previous Rileys and previous Wolseys, that brand meant something to you. That mark meant something to you. So you could just continue along that mark while driving something a bit more, well, a bit cheaper, to be honest, and a bit more humdrum.
Yeah, now let's look at another one of these, because there were quite a few sort of iterations of these type things, and one of them was the sort of Vanden Plas, and it was poshing up a couple of different models, which we'll get onto. But this next one, I believe you'll know more than me about it, but is it poshing up an 1100?
Yeah, so it's the Austin 1100, so the four-door. This is the predecessor to the Allegro. This is the Austin 1100, which was a really successful car. But what they did, they gave the Vanden Plas treatment to it. And there were cases in period of people dropping down from Rolls-Royces and bigger cars to have these as chauffeur-driven cars. I mean, people genuinely had their chauffeurs drive these because they had little things that made these people feel special. So it had a different nose, for example, with two big fog lights on it, loads and loads of chrome, And if you look inside, it's got the wraparound wooden dash. It's
Yeah.
got leather seats, armrests in the back, and that classic Van den Pla accessory, the picnic table.
Yeah. So in the back, it's, as Max says, it's got the limo seats, although the legroom you'd be sort of hunched in there, and then you've got this pop-up walnut table on either side for both passengers in the back with a cup holder is what we call it now. You rested your cup, you rested your glass on it, and as soon as somebody pulled off, it would have fallen over. But this was, I suppose, to park up and have something in the back. But oh my god, it is so Rolls Roycey inside, and I think we should explain Van den Pla was a coach builder, wasn't it? Your dad was a BL dealer. Do you remember seeing many of these in the flesh? These sort of cars?
Definitely, because the customers who bought the Van den Plas were that kind of cut above. They were the retired bank managers, and they were something in society. Yeah, you did get treated slightly better because there were kind of like, particularly in the BL showrooms, there were kind of Jaguar parts of it, and there were kind of Austin parts of it. And the Austin part was a bit down market, and the Jaguar bit was posh. And you had different salesmen to deal with different marks. So you were treated slightly differently if you came in a Van den Pla.
Hold that thought then, because the Allegro Van den Pla is probably the one that most people would think of. And I remember, and I mentioned this before in another podcast, that a librarian, when I was at sixth form college, had one of these, and it parked in a car park. It was such an odd thing to look at because it wasn't Allegro. Most people would just go more past Allegro. They were sort of, they weren't exactly revered in the 70s. But this thing, I remember looking through the windows and seeing this sort of interior, this walnut. It was just such a kind of, it's so British, isn't it? It was that, because even in the 80s there was that. Do you remember that was that aspiration to we were watching things like To the Manor Born. There was this sort of aspiration of living in a country house, and that country house kind of design was still in people's homes.
Not just that. Do you remember Upstairs Downstairs on ITV? I mean, that was all about kind of class and this class distinction.
Obsessed. Yeah, people were obsessed. So you go to a suburban house in like Surrey or something in the 80s, and people would have like sort of country house style furniture and sort of overly floral dinner sets and stuff like that, because there was still this cachet. And if you were that snob, if you were that sort of Mrs. Bouquet of the 80s in suburbia, this was a perfect car. So I do remember them being sort of there, but it was just weird. And I don't think this librarian was particularly posh, but it was an odd car to have, I think. But I think the demographic you describe is probably more akin to that, the retired bank managers, that sort of stuff suited this car. So have you got any other examples? Or did it just British cars that did this, or did it extend to anywhere else?
Well, no, remember, if you look on your screen now, Volkswagen did this. They basically upgraded the humble Beetle into the Volkswagen Karmann Ghia. Now, that was a completely different design on top of a Beetle chassis and Beetle engines. So that was kind of what they were doing. It didn't quite appeal to the snobbery. I think that was just more about slightly more Italian lines that they brought along to the kind of Volkswagen design. But you did mention that snobbery, and that's a very good point, because do you remember the Range Rover? The original Range Rover in the 80s, they did the In Vogue edition, which was going with Vogue magazine, which actually what started the Vogue spec on Range Rovers. And that was about kind of like picnic baskets and green wellies and slightly better Range Rovers. And then they took it one further. They did the Range Rover CSK, which I'm not sure you may not have heard about this. This is quite a rare model. But basically, it was a two-door Range Rover, which they put a load of bling on just to make it slightly different. And this was the start of the move-up market for Range Rovers. It's quite a significant car, this. They only made 200 of them, but the Range Rover CSK had basically lots and lots of upgrades, had aircon, leather interior, factory sunroof, spotlights, alloy wheels, just to make it different from a kind of farming Range Rover. So you weren't a farmer. You're not going to have a sheep in the back of this Range Rover. This is a kind of step-up market about it. And this is a 1991 CSK on your screen now. This is where Range Rovers started to get posh. And this is where they started to move away from those kind of farming roots or country roots that they had.
Yeah, that's true, because it wasn't a Chelsea tractor. There wasn't such a thing then, was there?
Not yet, no.
It was, you saw them in like, Cotswolds or somewhere like that. And they were sort of farm on off-road things that did then go down the pub. And then, as you say, this started changing it. I mean, this one up that we've got on our screen now, 1991, it's got low miles, 9,750, but it might have been around the clock. I'm not sure. I'll read the description in a minute. But it's up for nearly 70,000.
Yeah, they're significant cars, these CSKs, and there's not many around because they only made 200. But this is again, it's appealing to that British snobbiness. It's the poverty spec Range Rover, if you like, which the idea of that originally was that you could hose it through because it had rubber mats on when it got full of mud. Well, then they realised, well, actually, we can make a lot more money by charging more for these cars and taking them up market. And this is the kind of first, this in the In Vogue, with the kind of first upmarket Range Rover models. And again, it's taking a basic car, tarting it up, and charging a hell of a lot more money for it.
Yeah, we should say with this one, actually, look at reading the description, it's been restored and done. And then this carried on with Range Rovers, into the modern day, you had the overfinch because the blinged up Range Rover wasn't good enough. So you had to have the better one, didn't you? And then you have the even better one, and there's even the better one. And it's happened with Defenders and all that sort of stuff, hasn't it, over time? So it was a thing. It happened in other cars. I mean, to be honest, Range Rover now we see as a kind of a expensive car, but the ones I'm interested in, the more sort of like mundane ones, because I think they were the ones that are blinged up. I mean, BLs, you say, used to like doing it. I mean, there was the Metros, they blinged up a couple of those, didn't they?
They did, with mixed results. If you have a look now on your screen.
Yeah. You've got
now,
this
we
one.
talked about the Allegro Vandenpla being a bit of an odd car. Well, just imagine this. This is a Rover 100 Metro. So this is the change between, being a Metro and going to Rover. This is a 1996 Knightsbridge SE. So basically they called this thing Knightsbridge, and it's still a 4-door Metro, and it's awful. I mean, if you look at this, they made some very bright colors, and this is in a kind of awful purple. And then inside it had a sunroof, flicking through to the interior photos.
Well, I was going to say, I'm looking at the pictures now, and I think this is a 90s car, isn't it, this one? And I think that the original idea has been lost in translation, because if you go back to that Elf, and you go back to the Vandenpla 1100, essentially, the design cues were, let's chrome it up and let's put some leather and some wood in it. By the time we got around to this one in 1996, it just looks like a standard car. I think it's got wheel trims on it, isn't it? It's not glam at all. It's got color-coded purple bumpers, and then all the switchgear inside looks really rubbish. It's literally like they've just shoved a badge on it.
This is where it all sort of fell down for Brits being marketed cars that was taking them up market, because you can put a Kensington badge on the back and you can put alloys and cream leather seats on and a walnut veneer dash, but it's still a Metro. Well, like you said, the Elf and the Hornet and the Vandenpla 1100, they were kind of different cars, but actually this Metro is just adding some tat on it. It's like reversing it through Halfords. And I think in the end, this is where this kind of going from poverty spec to posh kind of ended, because with the Metro, you just weren't really convinced it was anything more than just a Metro with some stickers.
Yeah, and I think this is an austerity spec. I mean, look at, obviously the accountants have got involved in this, because I'm looking at the interior, and on the dashboard console, there's 3 blank buttons. Now, if you're paying extra for the so-called top of the range, and you get in the car, and there's fog lights and then 3 buttons that do nothing, it's sort of, you feel a bit cheated, don't you? They could have put something in there, couldn't they?
This is the death of that sort of posh spec that we got to. In the 60s, it was really effective to market cars. By the time you got to the 90s, a Metro Knightsbridge, I mean, I'm not sure even how many were built, but there can't have been that many.
No, I'm just going to actually look up on how many are left, actually. So the Rover Metro Knightsbridge, okay. According to this, there was only 4 left on the roads.
4 too many, to be honest. This one's actually priced for $7,995, which is, you just wouldn't pay that kind of money for a half-hearted upgrade, isn't it? The old upgrades were really quite cool. Even the Allegro Vandenpla was a cool car. I don't think a Rover 100 Knightsbridge is really a cool Metro.
They were 2,300 made. And there's 5 left or 4 left. That says it all.
Great survival rate.
And I wonder how much they were when they were originally out. I'm just looking to see if I can find a list price. I can't at this point in time, but I imagine they put the price up quite a bit, didn't they, on these?
I mean, not by much, because they didn't put much in, but they would have put it extra. It wasn't a runaway sales success like the MG Metro.
Do you know what? Looking at the early ones, like the Elf and the the 1100 one, at least they've got something to them, and you would have felt special in that. This car is just really sad. This Knightsbridge. It just for me, again, it's the 90s again. It just feels, there's nothing on it that feels nice. I'm not going to feel special driving that. It just looks, I don't know. I feel sorry for that car. I don't want to get in it. I don't want to drive it. I don't want to be near it.
People had their chauffeurs drive those Austin 1100 Vandenplas. People had their chauffeurs drive the kind of Wolsey versions of the Princess, because they were something different. You ain't going to get your chauffeur to drive a Metro Knightsbridge.
Okay, so that's it for this episode. I'm going to hail myself a Mercedes taxi and check out that wiring loom for any unused accessories.
I think you may have eaten too many facts for Christmas. Now, in the next episode, the saloon version of your Stag. We're looking at 70s saloons that were the triumph of their day. and that's Triumph with a capital T. That's a punctuation joke.
Also, we'll take a look at Datsun Z cars. Can the Japanese MGB really deliver that classic car thrill?
That's next time. Don't forget to comment on this episode via our socials.
You can find us at the Tyre Kickers UK on Instagram and the Tyre Kickers on Facebook.
And please find us on YouTube and hit subscribe. It'll really, really help us with a Tyre Kickers podcast. Go find it on YouTube. It's free to subscribe. It will take you seconds. It will make all the difference to us. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. I thought you'd read a book and you were just boring, load boring facts that you'd learned, but it's impressive research.
No, but thanks.
It was the ultimate Berlin taxi or the cheesy night hen.
Hang on.
Oh, glad I'm not editing it.
Oh, God. But were models like the Van den Pla all fur coat?
It hasn't been.
I really think they add something to the.
Yeah,
I
I
really
think
think
you're
they
right.
add something
actually.
to the step. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all your facts.
I don't think. Let's just say I don't think all of those facts will make it to the final edit.
By the way, I've got this glass here that sounds like a wine glass when I put it down, but I'm not drinking on the job. I'd just like to say that it has actually got water in
Why didn't you try drinking on the job? You might be a bit better.
it. How rude.
Can we change the decision on who's editing it?
No.